Hello and welcome to Youth Football Scotland TV. I'm your host Adam Binnie, and today we are joined by none other than Kevin Thomson. Tomo made 340 career appearances playing for Hibs, Rangers, Middlesbrough and Dundee, as well as receiving 3 international caps over his 13-year-long career. He's the founder of the Kevin Thomson Academy and under-18s coach at Rangers FC, and has recently enjoyed media roles with Rangers TV and BT Sport. Thanks for coming on, Tomo. How are we doing today?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Adam. Thanks for having me on. Look forward to seeing what type of tricky questions you've got for me.
And we are also joined today by Rangers TV commentator and the walking encyclopedia of Rangers knowledge himself, Tom Miller. Massive thanks for organising this, Tom. How are we doing?
Absolute pleasure, Adam. I'm looking forward to the evening. And Kevin's always great company, but a walking encyclopedia. Waddling, I'll accept. Walking is a bit ambitious.
We'll get started straight into the football. Tom, what are your earliest memories of the game, both as a player and a spectator?
Well, obviously, I grew up in down in the Borders in a wee town called Peebles. And unfortunately, the Borders, even to this day, which is a big passion of mine, it's a wee bit behind time when it comes to football. To think that me and Stevie McLean come out of Peebles, a small population, and went on and both had relatively good careers. Actually, you could argue it was almost through default, because right up until I think P7 we never had a school football team, and then in S1 and S2, first year and second year at high school, you had to play rugby. There was no football team, so the actual exposure that myself and even Stevie, because I got brought up with him, was almost self-exposure, playing footy in the street with your pals, and obviously we did have a boys club, so we both played for Peebles Thistle before we then moved on and ended up playing for Hutchie Vale, albeit different age bands, because Steve was a couple of years older than me. But my probably first memories of football for me personally was obviously the grassroots boys club called Peebles Thistle, and then as a fan, growing up a Hibs fan, my dad used to take me to Easter Road, not so much regularly as in every week, but we used to go relatively regularly, and obviously Skull Cup '91 was probably my first big major cup final that I went to as a young fan. I think I would have been, well, what's 91? I would have been, you're talking about 25, 26 years ago. Even longer, actually. 29 years ago. My maths is terrible. So that was what I would have been 6 then. I'm 35 now, so talking 29 years ago, that's mad to think that. So that would probably be my earliest memories of growing up, trying to fall in love with the game, Adam.
And then you mentioned that from playing from Peebles, you moved on to play for Hutchie Vale, obviously a very famous club, produced many top players despite being a boys club team. What are your fondest memories of playing at boys club level? Because you've obviously played boys club and then moved on to professional, and were there any other top players at Hutchie at the same time?
Well, we were obviously, as you just mentioned there, it's traditionally renowned for producing a lot of good players. I think the club programme that they've actually got, the Hall of Fame that players have went on and obviously become full-time professionals, I think they've actually got a Hall of Fame part that become full internationals. So the players that it produced were unbelievable, not specifically just in my age band, but my age band alone, obviously Stevie Whittaker, I played with him at Hutchie Vale, so to think that 2 Rangers players come out that one team, and it's not just 2 Rangers players that ended up becoming youth team players, 2 Rangers players that obviously contributed at first team level, 2 players that actually got bought, obviously off of the Hibs. So there was obviously other ones as well, but maybe never went on and quite had the careers and built up the profiles that me and Whitty did. But probably my memories, Adam, of the competitive nature of what Hutchie were as a club. They wanted to be the best, they wanted to win. Obviously I got brought up in an era where you did play for cups, you did play for trophies. There was a consequence in not winning, there was a consequence in not playing well, because the coach that I had for 2 or 3 years of my 5 or 6 at Hutchie, probably my least favourite coach, to be honest, was really ruthless in the respect of, if you never performed in the team, 9 times out of 10 we would win, but he always wanted more, which I suppose you could argue was quite a good thing looking back, having a higher demand on me as a young player. But like any grassroots player, you want to play, don't you? So when you found yourself on the bench, there was a real big disappointment part, if you know what I mean. But that's how Hutchie had their regime, and that if you never performed and you never played to the standard of the coach, you were straight out the team, and there was a consequence almost. So I would say that was probably the the memories that I can remember. Real ruthlessness to win every game, which I suppose maybe stood me in good stead when I one day become a Rangers player.
And then you went on to move to Coventry City, is that correct? So how did that come about? How does a player from a boys' club team in Edinburgh end up moving on to Coventry City?
Well, we were so to give you a wee insight into that, Hutchie worked through a wee spell where they wore Hibs strips and
Right.
had an affiliation with Hibs, and then there was an affiliation with Coventry. So we used to wear the Coventry strips minus the sponsor, a bit like an academy team. If the sponsor was maybe an alcohol or whatever, or a betting company or whatever, the strip would maybe be playing on the front. Like a lot of kind of academy teams, I know obviously Rangers have got big sponsors, etc. But like the majority of academy teams you play against, they've got blank strips in there apart from the badge. So Coventry went through a spell where Hutchie were a feeder club to them. So basically they cherry picked all the best talent and gave opportunities for boys to go down and trial. And I was fortunate enough to be one of them. And to be honest, I was probably not one that was at the front of the list. But when i.e. with the scouts, but the main man come up one time, a guy called Richard Money. He was the academy director, and I don't know if it just so happened that I had a great game that day, but he fell in love with what I was as a player, and he couldn't believe that I hadn't been down more regular, and he didn't know much about me. He said he'd only watched the game for 10 minutes and knew I was the best player. So all of a sudden I got massive opportunities to go down week at the end, the only Hutchie boy that signed, but I was probably one of a dozen to if not more. Obviously, you can imagine the players younger than maybe 12 or 13 wouldn't have got an opportunity to go. It was more the boys that were approaching their years at high school where you'd be getting ready to leave school, etc., i.e. to potentially become a full-time player. So this kind of probably 14, 15, I got exposure to going down near enough every other weekend to playing games against whoever, Man United's, Tottenham's, Aston Villa's, etc. And obviously I ended up obviously signing my first full-time professional contract there, where I moved away from mum and dad, and unfortunately for me it never worked out. I only lasted a few months and I come back up the road.
Was Gordon Strachan the manager at that time?
Manager, Tom, Gaz Mack was the captain. I was
going to say Gary McAllister would be assistant and coming to the end of his
own
Gaz
was still playing, Tom.
Yeah, still playing.
Playing.
I mean, there must be other characters there at that time.
It was massive. So you had guys like Paul Telfors, all the kind of old brigade that were obviously tight with Gordon. Carlton Palmer was there at the time. It was the era that Robbie Keane had just signed, funnily enough. He just signed for Wolves for I think about 7 million. They were a Premier League club at the time. They actually got relegated the year, I don't know if Gordon left. They had the Moroccans, Mustafa Shipo and Mustafa Hadji. Obviously Morocco done really well at that World Cup, didn't they? Did we not get? No, we never. Somebody got a European team got drawn with Morocco, I'm sure, in one of the competitions. It was either the World Cup, whatever.
There's a few snapped up Aston Villa into that marketplace as well, to tap into the African players for the first time.
They were brilliant players for Coventry, like huge players, like they were good enough to compete with anyone. But they were Highfield Road at the time. Obviously, the old Highfield Road compared to when they moved to the new stadium was my first dream of becoming a professional footy player, if you know what I mean. Even though I'd been to Easter Road many a time, but I was now part of a club that there was a pathway for me to try and there was a goal, if that made sense. There was a vision, a tunnel vision to try and obviously one day be a Gary McAllister, one day be a Carlton Palmer, or do you know what I mean? John Eustace was a young player at the time that was just breaking through. He was like 19, 20, so probably 4 or 5 years older than myself. And he was
almost came to Rangers as well under Mark Warburton at one time.
It's a funny old world, isn't it? So that's looking back, Tom. It was Stuart Colley was the physio at the time as well.
Yeah, of course.
I've known Stuart for a long, long time. Because obviously he was a physio at Hibs, and then he ended up being a physio at Rangers. Asking cross at times.
But then, of course, sorry, Adam. The next was your boy.
To be honest, Tom, I fell out, I suppose, which is a good insight for Adam, I suppose. And if this is going to go to kind of younger generations as such, I probably gravitated towards the wrong path for a wee period. Not a bad path, but a path of being that cheeky teenager that thought I knew everything and started to take poor advice and started to. Mum and Dad would tell me to be in at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and I would try and push the boundaries to come in at 10:30 or 11:30, or if my pals were going up the park, I would be like, do you know what I mean? I'd be coming home at no silly time in the morning, but like always trying to push the boundaries. being that team that used to lie in bed all day and not get up to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I kind of lost love of football a wee bit, Tom. One, because I went through a difficult time at Coventry. I don't know if bullying's the right word. Probably is. I found it really difficult. The boys were really horrible to me. And it tested my resolve as a young boy, being away from mum and dad and being away from all my pals, getting brought up in a upbringing. You're no streetwise in Peebles. You're no like the Tooney lads. You're no like the lads for the West. You're not exposed to much when you're in Peebles as a youngster. So all of a sudden, I was in the big bad world, having to fight, and I was on my own. I had no pals around about me, and it was difficult. So I went through a wee spell that, believe it or not, when I left Coventry as a full-time player, I went back to Hibs and played for Hibs that were basically like lads in the street that couldn't kick a ball, but they were my pals. And I just enjoyed kicking a ball about before I got an opportunity to obviously go back into Hibs, and then the rest is probably history. But I went through a period, without quoting me on it, a good 3 or 4 months, if not a wee bit longer, where I basically was, the best way to describe me, Tom, was probably a teenage bum. Dossing around the house.
A wee bit.
I lost my way a wee bit, Tom. But I've always thought that hurdles, setbacks as an individual, for me, a lot of it was through injuries. But that setback at Coventry was one that, when I got my mojo back and I got my belief back as a person, and I got that opportunity to go back in Hibs, I had no doubt in my mind the time that I went into Hibs to train, even though Donald Park, all right, saying it in hindsight, but he pulled me aside after 15-20 minutes in session and told me when I wanted to sign. And I just laughed, "What, already?" And he was like, you're already better than everything we've got. And I was like, it made me feel top of the world. But that was an opportunity, Tom, that I was never, ever going to give up, for what I'd come through, what I'd been through, and the way I was treated at Coventry, not by the club, but by the young players that we used to share digs with. They were horrible to me. I was the baby of the group. And to an extent, it was actually a wee bit disgusting the way I got treated. But it made me who I am, Tom, and the resilience of me as a character and as a person. And that bit where I did lose my mojo, but I got back on it, and the setback that I had as a young player, I managed to fight through it and forge a brilliant career for myself.
Yeah.
And then you said you moved back up the roads. You managed to get back into moved on to Hibs. Obviously, that Hibs team in the early 2000s were famous for producing young players like yourself, Scott Brown, Derek Riordan, Gary O'Connor, Stephen Whittaker. What do you think was the secret to producing so many top young talents at that time? Was it Donald Park's influence, or was it something else?
Listen, Donald Park had an unbelievable influence on us. He's a special person, believe it or not. He actually just messaged me today, funnily enough, somebody that I hold in high regard. And everybody asked me I've had this debate with Kenny Miller, because obviously I want to be the best coach. Listen, I want to get right to the top. I want to be better than everybody, the same as I was as a player. I want to be the best. If I fall short, I'll not be through lack of trying. So I try and pick people's brains and insights. And the biggest thing for me that Parky taught us, football aside, coaching aside, the game aside, was respect, humility, and drive. And we had an unbelievable upbringing in that we learned life skills that I still hold right close to my heart now, life skills that I preach to our kids now. I don't believe that you can get to the top without having drive, without having hard work, real basic attributes in my opinion that anyone can have, but the best have it in abundance. And I always liken it to the player that moans about hard work is the player that never succeeds. The player that embraces hard work is the player that gets to the top.
And as I mentioned, you were part of that golden generation of youth players. Could you tell that those boys growing up could you tell that all of you were going to go and make it?
It was just a special time, Adam, and I just done a Zoom call for Stevie Wright up at Dundee there, and I said, I got asked a similar question, and I said the best thing for us looking back, and without doing any of the boys a disservice, was that the group that actually come through, we probably all helped each other. Because normally when a young boy comes through, he gets a lot of publicity and there's a lot of pressure on him. And sometimes I think that a young player can get in the team and the fans think he's wonderful, and then 10 games later he's not as wonderful and doesn't quite kick on, and then all of a sudden he finds himself at the team and then he loses his way a wee bit, and he's just in that period of the first 10-15 games he goes and signs a big 5-year contract and everything's on top of the world. He's in the paper every other day, whereas we had 6 or 7 all coming through at the one time. So the onus on that individual was spread across 6 or 7 players, and I think we were left to focus on what was what was really important, the hard yards on the training pitch, the lifestyle, the living the right way, the pushing each other on, the young player that. So when Scott Brown wanted to be the best, I wanted to be better than him. When I got the man of the match bottle, he wanted it the next week. When Deeks got the plaudits because he scored the 2 goals, I wanted to get the plaudits next week. Do you know what I mean? So there was that drive and that competitiveness within the group that I think, even though we never knew it, it helped us produce. And I'm not saying that we're a class of 92, because I'm not, because they were some of my heroes growing up. But when I look back to the Nevilles and the Butts and the Giggs and the Beckhams, etc., it wouldn't surprise me if they had the same part within them that pushed each other on. So it's a real hard thing to mirror, because it's never been done again, is it, really? The era of Man United and having that 6 or 7 that come through at the one time, and in the era at Hibs. But I think if you can get 3 or 4 in the team at the one time, if they're talented enough, because look, you have to have the talent. I certainly think that it can help the young boys flourish, because there's that. It's a hard thing to describe in a professional. See, when you're young and you've got that swagger and you've got that strut, it's a real hard thing for an older player to have. And you only have it for a period of time before you become experienced. When you have that strut is when you need to make your name, and you need the right things to fall into the right place for you. And if they don't, and the strut vanishes and you've not quite got on the bandwagon, you end up at the lower league clubs and you end up playing part-time footy, and your chance misses because the next kid's on the next conveyor belt waiting to have your opportunity. So I think that's just me giving you a wee insight into my belief of what I kind of am as a coach at the moment, and what I kind of felt helped us on our journey.
Very terrific. Yeah.
And then in the 2003-2004 season, you break into the Hibs side and become a regular. Tom, what were your first memories of Kevin Thomson when he broke through at Hibs?
Bad hairdo.
Bad hairdo, Tom. It's amazing that I genuinely believed I was the boy. I think we all thought we were the boy. I think we all thought we were better looking than each other. We all thought we had better hairstyles. We all thought that we were better than so and so up the tune, and we were the best dancer. We were the best football player.
I'm pretty sure you probably were. But I mean,
we did. We had that young, hungry testosterone push, drive, whatever you want to call it, Tom. That we were all probably competing against each other. But probably the memories, Adam, I would say, would be just enjoying footy. I cannot think back until I had my first serious injury as a youth team player and as a kid growing up, apart from a wee spell at Coventry when I went through that wee 4 or 5 months that I said. I cannot think of a time that I never loved playing footy.
I think at that time I was doing a Radio 4 in Edinburgh, so I covered a lot of Hibernian games. And Hero often said, move the ball quicker. You guys didn't need to be told to move the ball quicker. It was a natural reaction. And the movement off the ball was something that other teams couldn't live with, because you were all comfortable on the ball and playing for each other. So it was a really halcyon days for a very talented young Hibs side.
It was a special time, Tom, and I do think, and it's one of the ones that I never like comparing different eras or different teams, and even harder for a club like Rangers to compare a really good treble-winning team to a different team, or some of the teams you've seen compared to my team, because there's so many different factors that make a brilliant Rangers team or any given team. But I think that Hibs team, when you look at the number of players that went on and become full internationals and went on and won trophies and went on and had really big careers, there was no doubt in my mind that we were only a year or two away from being really competitive, and albeit competitive on a shoestring, because Mr. Petrie was tight with the old pocket, and there wasn't much pot of gold there to dig into to bring in that slightly higher calibre of player to help the young lads effectively flourish. The biggest disappointment for me was that I never got an opportunity to win a trophy under Tony Mowbray. I think if we could have stayed together for one more year, and it would never happen, it would never come to the stage where you'd lose the manager and you would sell 6 or 7 players in the summer. It was always going to be staged and staggered. And Tony obviously actually O'Connor was the first to go, then Riordan, and then Tony, and then myself. And then Scotty in the summer, Whitty just followed straight after in the summer, and then obviously Fletch was the next again summer, I think, to Burnley. So then that was effectively the whole up on. He played in the Premier League, but I think when you look at that starting 11 at its very best, and I've looked at it before with some of my pals, near enough the whole starting 11, apart from maybe one, the goalkeeper, never went on and become full internationals. I think if it had stayed together for that wee bit longer, and albeit, by the way, the old firm team, like when I broke through, I was playing against Barry Ferguson, I was playing against one of the best players in the last couple of decades. When you broke into play against Celtic, you were playing against Neil Lennons and Alan Thompsons and Chris Suttons and Henrik Larssons. You know what I mean? And that's not doing the two teams a disservice at the moment, or any team in the past, but they were seriously good old firm teams at the time as well.
In the January window of 2007, there's some interest from Charlton and Bolton, but then you're linked with a move to both sides of the old firm. What was that like when you first heard the interest from Celtic and from Rangers?
Well done, Willie Mackay.
Willie Mackay, Willie Mackay, famous. I think the biggest thing for me, Adam, looking back, is that I've always wanted to be perceived for being me, and I pride myself in being respectful, being a gentleman, being humble, and being hardworking. I've got no fancy lingo. I am what I am. I am what I say in the tin. And I suppose in that era, in that 6 or 7 weeks, there was a lot of dirt tarnished at the transfer saga, the ins and outs, the quotes in the paper, the headlines, the constant tone and froing between club to club. Listen, I got what I wanted in the end. I got an unbelievable move to an unbelievable club that worked out in history to be an unbelievable move for me as an individual. I got to work under the best manager that I think we've ever seen. He's as good as anyone there is. I know Sir Alex is tops, but if Walter had achieved what he achieved at Rangers, at Man United, it would probably be Walter. He probably never got the recognition, in my opinion, that he deserved, even though I know he's treated like a god at our club, and rightly so. So it did work out for me right in the end. But I think the biggest thing for me, Adam, would be that I would like to be perceived as what I am as a person. And that 6 or 7 weeks went down a path that I was uncomfortable with. I think the club never, if you probably in hindsight you could go back and turn the clock, you would just like to leave as a hero and wish the club well and move on. It never quite worked like that for me, and it probably leaves a bad taste in a lot of Hibbies' mouths.
It was out with your hands, Kevin. You couldn't influence that.
No, I know, but it's one of the ones, Tom, that you any human wants to be liked, and I just always feel that the type of player I was, the boyhood fan, the one that buys my kids the strips every year, it would have been nice if I could have had I don't even know if a better send off is the right way to describe it, but just more of a clean break,
recognition and understanding.
Aye. I suppose that's probably the bit that I'm trying to get to. But look, I went on and played. I had 4 years at Rangers, which was I wouldn't have changed for anyone. So I'm happy to take the stick. I just, in a perfect world, it would be great to every club you play at to be appreciated for who you are and the type of player you were, I would say.
As you said, you were eventually sold to Rangers for £2 million, and then in your first full season at Rangers, you reached the UEFA Cup final. Rangers being large underdogs in that tournament. What was the secret behind that team's success, do you think?
Drive, determination. The manager. I've never played in a team that would never get beat. We got beat, but it was just a resilience and a drive and a desire to never want to get beat. And like any great team, any good team, they get beat. Of course you get beat, but there was a real togetherness. There was a real camaraderie within the changing room. Lots of different personalities, but true winners that wanted to win every day in training, wanted to be in the best team, wanted to be the best player. And I had to evolve to all. In my opinion, at Hibs, we never quite had that edge. When I moved to Rangers and you had to compete with Barry's and that and training every day, it made me the person that I am. I had to embrace it. If I never embraced it, I would have sunk. I wouldn't have succeeded. So I think the biggest thing I could say that team had, which would be a characteristic of a Walter Smith team, was a never say die attitude, an unbelievable resilience as a group of players. I actually just seen my goal. Somebody sent it to me against Dundee United, and without kind of blowing smoke up my backside, but that game was surreal. We battered Dundee United that night, the 3-3 game, Tom, and I scored in the last minute, and that just kind of summed up that team. Because even though it was like one of the games that we actually played unbelievable, we scored good goals, we battered Dundee United, yet they just hit us on the counter attack, and every time they hit us, I think they had 3 chances and scored 3 goals. We found ourselves obviously trailing. And pushing and scrambling across the box, across the line, off the bar, past the post. And I actually had a shot 30 seconds before where I shanked one in the crowd. And Walter actually said to me afterwards, I knew you were going to score second time. He says, a year ago you wouldn't have took the shot on. He said, but now you've got personality, belief, drive. He says, and you're now a proper Rangers player. He says, because you never passed the buck. And I remember Davy Weir passing the ball and getting nudged and getting fouled, and I didn't want a foul. A free kick meant slowing the game down. That suited Dundee United. I wanted to keep going. They would have had to rugby tackle me to get me down, and then I had to then back myself. And I suppose that team had that in abundance. If it wasn't me, it was Kenny. If it wasn't Kenny, it was Baz. If it wasn't Baz, it was Davy Weir. If it wasn't Davy, it was Witts. If it wasn't him, it was McGregor. It was right across the board. That team had unbelievable personality.
Yeah.
And then you scored your first goal for Rangers against Celtic in an Old Firm derby. What is that feeling like when the ball hits the back of the net?
It's hard to explain what a feeling's like scoring a goal anyway, but to score one in an Old Firm game, and on a selfish note, which I'm not normally selfish, but to score in an Old Firm game and the game finish 1-0 is like the perfect scenario for probably any player. Because that game can only ever be remembered as the 1-0 game, and who scored it? Kevin Thomson. It wasn't like it was another 2 or 3 scorers or somebody got a double when you only got one that I look back on and I'm really proud of. The game itself, I felt like I bossed the game actually in the first half. Obviously I had incidents with Samaras where I tried to chop into him and obviously he fouled me and I ended up going down. He actually clattered my shin, but it was more me trying to leave obviously my leg there thinking he was going to kick me. I never dived as such. I just chopped the ball away from him thinking that the angle that he approached me, there was definitely going to be contact. I actually gave myself a wee bit of a dull one, almost like a dead shin. But to score an Old Firm, to run across that byline in front of the Celtic fans to then celebrate with the Rangers fans, I cannot tell you how special it is.
It was an awkward angle too. Even you were
and the right
striker's goal. It wasn't a natural type sort of finish, but you kept the cool head and just slotted it in.
It's I think the fact that I was in the box was really unnatural. Tom, never mind actually having a shot at goal, but it was funny because the manager, obviously the camera goes to the manager and he's obviously getting ready to go down in the changing room, isn't he? And he's in the wee next to the wood almost where I don't know what that guy's name is. I know him as well, but one of the guys that obviously stand at the kind of the top of the stairs to direct people with their seats. And Walter was obviously just waiting to go down.
Sure.
And even like that would normally be a pass that I would pass Baz rather than him pass to me. And then I always know when obviously you get into an area of the pitch that you need to think quick means you've got less time, you need to move the ball quicker. So I knew I would have limited touches. And the one person that would almost be that wall pass, that kind of 1-2 man, the perfect man would be someone like a Kenny Miller or a Jean-Claude Dashaball. There's other players that a wee natural would have tried an overheat kick or whatever, but you knew when you put it down Dash's throat, he would always be a good soundboard for you and get it back to you. And then, as you say, a wee bit of an unnatural position, but you do what anyone tells you when you're young, Tom. You trust your weak foot, you trust your technique, you try and hit target, and luckily for me, Arthur Boric made a wee bit of fool of himself doing the big Peter Schmeichel and doing a big...
No, the first time. No, the first time for that year, is it? But I mean, it was a great finish. I remember it well.
It was a special day. My mum and dad were at the game as well. My pals were at the game. I think my pals were actually in the corporate that day, actually. So it was at any time, any game is big at first team level. But to score an Old Firm and win 1-0 was extra special for me.
For sure.
And so you mentioned Walter Smith there. What would a typical Walter Smith team talk be like on Old Firm Day for you?
Well, it's funny because a lot of people think that Walter was this hard taskmaster and he would have big, unbelievable motivational speeches, but the changing room almost managed itself. And it's funny, like I've told a story I think with Tom before with Davy Lavery. I don't know quite it's relevant for this pod, but it's the players were really quiet, focused. And people would think that it would be like the changing room would be bouncing, and it would be the changing room before an Old Firm would be focused, would be ready. It's funny. There's a smell in the air at Old Firm Day. The changing room smells different. The crowd smells different. The atmosphere smells different. And it's one of the ones that when it sticks at the back of your lungs, it's hard to describe. And I used to get that feeling at an Old Firm that like the focus, the pictures in my head, what was going to happen, how quick I had to start, what was going to happen if we go behind, are we going to see it out, who am I going to be playing against, how am I going to get tight to him to start with, how am I going to lay a marker on him, who's going to win the first 50-50, who's going to get centre, all these things, all these emotions are running through your head. But the one thing I used to always try and tell myself was that I'm the best player. And even though I wasn't, I believed that I was the best player. I had to believe that I was going into a cauldron that I deserved to be there. and that was the belief that Walter gave into every player in his team. It made you believe that you deserved to play for Rangers, and he wanted you to be you. And me being me, this kind of lunatic that run about in the middle of the pitch trying to crash into people was me, and that was my way of getting my second win, getting my foothold in the game, getting my teammates up for it, getting the crowd up for it. And it was something I loved. It used to give me goosebumps standing in the back of my neck when I used to stand in that tunnel waiting to go to Warren. I felt as though the captaincy was on my doorstep effectively, so everything was going in the right direction for me. The Middlesbrough, sorry to elaborate on Adam, I was just passionate about trying to get all the wee finer details in, and when Gordon Strachan and I sat with him in the Balmoral to negotiate a contract, it was still a wee bit like when me and my wife went down to Middlesbrough. And by the way, it's a great club. It's a really good club, brilliant training ground, Premier League club effectively, brilliant stadium, beautiful place to live. We stayed in the countryside. It was everything you could ask for, moving away from home for the first time, 2.5 hours in the car down the road. The wife was relatively happy. We had the dogs. We just had the wee man. The wee man was just born in March, and then obviously we moved in the summer. So it ticked all the boxes effectively. They offered me a big contract. I was just in a surreal situation that I couldn't believe that Rangers genuinely wanted to sell me. And I deep down, I think that they didn't. But obviously what transpired in the next kind of 12 to 18 months tells you why. There was, hopefully people can look back and think that was a good asset for the club, and to get £2 million for me at 25, 26-year-old was in my opinion a bargain for Middlesbrough, even though it never worked out a bargain. It was, in my opinion, it wasn't the money that Rangers, well, they knocked back I think £5 or £6 million off of West Brom the season before, off of Tony Mowbray. So he's selling for a
I think it probably also saved a wee bit of embarrassment for the club, Kevin, that had they been in a position to offer you an extension to the contract, it wouldn't have been on the terms you would have expected for the contribution you had made and where the club was going. But off the field, there clearly were a turbulence going on financially.
It's stuff that we, it's like as a player, Tom, it's different when it happens. Then you get an insight into what's going on, and it'll be plastered all over the papers, and there'll obviously be talks within the club. But when we reported back pre-season, the club was just exactly the same as the club the season that we'd left a couple of weeks ago. Do you know what I mean? We were demented on winning another title, being successful, getting, do you know what I mean, obviously back into Europe. We would have had to qualify through the Champions League, which the boys always ended up doing. That was they played Man United that year, didn't they? That was the group stages with Man United. That was the.
McGregor was the only goalkeeper to keep a clean sheet at Old Trafford that season.
And I still remember the boy who broke his leg, didn't he, with Kurt Broadfoot.
That's right. It was a shocker.
I remember watching it on the telly. So I've actually felt as though I left a season too early, because obviously the club, they signed Jelavic. The club, I think, won the double again that year in the end. And well, they did. They beat Celtic in the cup final, didn't they? Because Davo
Jelavic, the League Cup final goal,
and then they won the Kel Lafferty hat-trick at Killie.
That's it.
So I actually left a season early, but I'm glad I did leave in hindsight, because I would have been gutted to leave for nothing.
Yeah, it was out your hands.
And not have a contract, because I didn't think I would have the same rapport and the same appreciation of the fans if I had left for nothing. And I would have been in a difficult position, the club going down to the lower leagues, probably not being in the position to offer me a contract. And then obviously being a free bosman, without sounding big headed, I probably would have been quite an exciting free bosman for a lot of clubs in Britain.
For sure.
At 25, 26-year-old, you know what I mean? So, and off the back of winning 3 titles in a round, so I would have won 3 if I'd stayed, if you know what I mean, rather than obviously leaving. But so in hindsight, I always think things work out the way they should in the end. But to say that I had aspirations of playing in England, Adam, probably no, because my dreams were met with playing at Rangers, winning trophies, playing on the big stage, being a big attraction effectively, being a big name is something that you aspire to have. The publicity that comes with a big name is not something I aspire to have. I didn't like the publicity, but I liked the fact that people knew who Kevin Thomson was. And people would have my name on my strip, and I got to play live on the telly, I got to win trophies, all the wee things that the youngsters really aspire to be. All my dreams had been met when I got to Rangers to win trophies and play on the big stage.
You struggled with the injuries at Middlesbrough before moving back up the road to Hibs. Did you always want to come back to Hibs and kind of prove yourself to the fans again after it kind of left them sour terms before?
I think, kind of touching on obviously the question earlier, you want to be perceived in the manner that you feel as though you deserve, and the type of person you are. I think you come across a lot of players in life that I didn't bother with any perception of what people that I couldn't care about the random fan. I just think when it's there's a perception out there that is perceived in a different light of what you actually are as a person when people get to meet you and get to know you. I think I would always want to be portrayed as actual who I am rather than people having this perception of me, if that makes sense. Quite a difficult thing to get across when obviously a club is supported by hundreds of thousands of different people, do you know what I mean, and different people going every week, etc. But when I went back, and obviously I played for free, I think the biggest thing for me was I wanted to show everybody that I was still capable of being a good player. That was my drive. The flack and the fickle stuff that comes along with being a player and sometimes how it's perceived in the media was something that never overly bothered me. I had thick skin, as you do as a player, but I wanted to try and show people that, because this is the problem that comes with flack. People actually then gravitate away from thinking that you're not a good player. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I didn't mind getting the flack, but I wanted still people to think that I was a good player. So I suppose my drive was to show people at 28, 29, even though I'd had a real turbulent time at Middlesbrough, that I was still a good player. And I still felt at the time when I come back up the road under Pat for that first kind of 12 months or whatever, I felt like I was capable of playing for anyone in the Premier League. Hibs were, in my opinion, an average team. A kind of struggling top 6 team at the time, even though it transpired they ended up getting relegated obviously under Terry, but I'd like to think that there was different facets towards that kind of depreciation of that squad. Effectively it just fell apart, but under Pat, I would say that Hibs were a kind of steady top 6 team, 5th or 6th, you know what I mean, and probably for Hibs' expectations a wee bit short, but on the same side quite a safe Premier League team. So I think the biggest motivation for me, buddy, was to show people that I was still capable of playing and competing with the whoever the best players were at the time. I felt as though I owed it to myself and I owed it to my kids that obviously thought Dad was their hero, that I could compete on a Saturday week in, week out.
You still were a good player when you went back up to Hibs. I was at the Hibs versus Falkirk Scottish Cup semi-final. I was playing for Falkirk under-12s at the time and I was a flag bearer on the pitch that day. That was the...
You know, doing that day?
I know, 3-0 down at half-time and going to 1-3, but what a game.
I had a serious rant at half-time that day.
I've heard about it. James McPake was talking about that. You know. And then another couple of years at Hibs before you then go on to Dundee. And I was actually speaking to Simon Ferry last night, and he's asked me to ask you about the Dundee physio. What's the story there with the physio?
I knew Si would come up with a funny question. He was listen, it is what I am as a person. He was different as a physio. Naim Mohammed, he was called. He was Paul Hartley's kind of right-hand man. He'd done everything he could to try and get him in. He had him at Alloa, but he wasn't let's just say he wasn't the usual physio that would bump on your leg, you get a bag of ice or whatever. He was right into pressure points, and if you had a sore ankle, he said it was coming for your hip. If you had a sore hip, he said it was coming for your ankle. If you had a sore left ankle, he said it was coming for your right ear. And he was a bit unorthodox, but he was a really nice man. The unfortunate thing for me was that I was having issues with my calf, and he was gravitating away from what, in my opinion, thought was my problem. And I was quite experienced in having the same problems at Middlesbrough. And then all of a sudden he was telling me that it was something different. So you can imagine that for me, there was the same situation for other lads that were injured. So he was a lovely man, still keep in contact with him now. He still sends me a birthday message or whatever. I think I was one of his favourite.
He sends you a birthday card at Christmas.
Believe it or not, he still texts me to say happy birthday, and he'll text me and ask me how I am. Just randomly, but he's me, Simon Ferry and Willie Dyer was another lad that I played with up there. Top boys, real good mates that I met, good players as well. Always do themselves a disservice when they play with somebody like myself. They always think that I was miles better than them or whatever, and blah 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 blah. But they were real good boys, good players. Si was a wee bit unlucky with injuries as well, just never could get a run. But he was. I knew when you'd have a bit of laughter with Si Ferry. He was like that. As soon as Si walked in the physio room, he would jump off the bed to kick him out the door and lock the door. He just didn't want Si anywhere near the physio room. He's just always up to mischief. Si, he's always mucking about, always sticking tape onto the people's backs and stealing the scissors and just being a nuisance. But a brilliant lad. Somebody that I'm massively fond of. But as I say, Niall was a wee bit a left ball, shall we say, a wee bit of a left curveball.
Yeah.
But he was still a nice man.
And you played with a lot of players in your career. And a question I always ask everyone when I get towards the end of the interview on their playing career is if you could make a five-a-side team in positions of players that you've played with, who makes your five-a-side team?
It's not easy, that.
No, it's not.
McGregor would definitely be in goals.
Yep.
I played with Jonathan Woodgate when I was at Middlesbrough. And I think he was probably, if I had to pick kind of the top players that I played with, he would be right up there. Probably a wee bit unfortunate like myself. By the time I got to play with him, his kind of body was knackered. But to play for Leeds, for obviously Newcastle, for Real Madrid, for Spurs, for Stoke, for Middlesbrough, he was an unbelievable defender and really, really basic technically, which is a surprise to play at the level that he played at. Not the type that could go and do 50 keepy-uppies under pressure in the gym. I used to have a bit of banter with him. Come on in, let's see you do 20 keepy-uppies. He couldn't do them. I used to always have a bit of banter with him, but he was one that I used to pick his brain when we went on trips and just get an insight into what a changing room was like at Real Madrid and what the coaches were like, how they manage big personalities, blah, blah, blah. So I was obviously already starting to build bridges and pick people's brains about how I could one day be the best manager. So he would definitely be in it. Fergie, it's hard because five-a-side I'm automatically thinking, how can I win? And sometimes the best players that you played with aren't always the ones that would be the right ones to have in a five-a-side team. So Mendes is probably the best player that I played with. I always just edged Pedro just in front of Scotty's and Bazzies and Steve Davis's, etc. Woody's. But I would go McGregor, Woody, Fergie. I'll go for Kenny Miller and going for a swerve ball, Stephen Whittaker.
Whittaker?
No, why? Because he can date
Port
everyone.
Lisbon.
That's my point, Tom. So he can defend,
he
can run, he can tackle, he can score a goal. So I just think Woody at the back, Whitty kind of floating about in front of him, Baz and Kenny Miller putting in the net.
Yeah.
A strong team.
The unfortunate part for me, Adam, is I could probably pick on paper what would look like a better team, but that team wouldn't get beat. I want a team that doesn't get beat. I want to win.
I think they would complement each other as well, that crew. Yeah.
Tom, I think we should put a team together, try and take on that lot.
No, you're all right. I don't think you get much of a chance to enjoy the ball. I think once they had the ball, it was theirs. Yeah. We would need a Tomo to come and win it back for us. Yeah.
Need Walter Smith as manager as well to sort that lot out.
I'd like that challenge against that five. Like I'd like to put a five together with me and to have a wee go at that five. But that five would be. See, it's funny. We used to play 3v3s we were big on 3v3s in the afternoon. And one of the pre-seasons, my three was McGregor, obviously in goals. We used to steal the young academy goalies as well, and you'd have the pitches set up. And you'd play like 8 4-minute games it used to be. And me, Davy Weir and Alan Gow with McGregor in goals never got beat. Davy Weir never moved. I could do everything, and Alan Gow, I could bounce it off him, he could keep the ball. And Gowser could shift it on a small pitch and score. He could pass it in the net. Really talented boy. I still remember it to this day. The next again year, I remember being in Kenny's team, where I want to say maybe Charlie, and Kenny, and we still done well, but we weren't the top team. But I remember the top team one year, McGregor in goals, me, Davy Weir, and Alan Gow. Couldn't make that up, could you? Davy done all the talking, I done all the running, and Gowser done all the wee finishing touches.
Good play. Yeah.
And when you stopped playing, you started the Kevin Thomson Academy. Was it always your ambition to get into coaching?
First 5-year contract to Rod Petrie at Hibs, and then arguing over 50 quid a week. Signing a 5-year contract as one of the most talented kids in the country. Typical Mr. Petrie. I said to him that I would be the manager here one day. So even at 19, I had that brain, that thought of I wanted to be a manager one day. I wanted to be a coach. Unfortunately, my career tailed off with real bad luck regarding injury. So I knew this bridge was going to come. I had the fairy tale of having a successful career and walking the dogs and playing golf every day, but everybody that knows me, I cannot sit still for 5 minutes. So I knew that it was going to be a natural progression for me. I feel as though I've got so much to give. I feel as though I've got the right personality, the right character to hopefully be a top manager one day. That's the drive, that's the determination. So I think the path, the way I would describe it, is it's probably naturally found me, if that makes sense. I've tried not to force it. I do think there's some players that have far better careers than me, that it just doesn't naturally find them. And I think if you try and force it, I think the best, it's almost like a duck to water, if that makes sense. And I feel as though that transition from being a player to being a coach for me has made me still love the game every day. And I'm one of the lads that I love football, and I'm not embarrassed to say it. I love coaching. I love working with the boys. I love working for the club. The profile that I built within the club, the appreciation that I get for the fans makes me really proud that I work for a club as good as Rangers.
We touch on that academy. That there'll be a lot of kids watching this at home, eager to return to football, but the current government guidelines restrict it to just one-to-one sessions at the minute. So how can these kids get involved with the Kevin Thomson Academy and get their football fixed during lockdown?
Well, we've unfortunate thing for obviously I done the KTA challenge, didn't I?
Yeah.
It took over my whole life, and getting the manager to do it and to push it viral for us was it went all over the world. And some of the stars that done it was make me really proud that you can pick up the phone and drop a text message to kind of some of these guys that are willing to. I know they weren't doing much, etc. Men and women. A lot of the Rangers women done it as well, and some of the Hibs women, and obviously Erin Cuthbert done it as well, didn't she? So some of the Scotland internationals, etc. So it kind of travelled everywhere. Kenny got over to Australia for us. Scotty McDonald got over to America for us. It's like, you wouldn't believe how far that challenge travelled. So we've probably been a wee bit, I don't know if lazy is the right word, because I'd hate to ever be called lazy, but for the first 4 or 5 weeks we were doing a lot of stuff on obviously the YouTube channel. I don't know why, because everybody's doing Zoom calls and internet sessions, I just feel as though like the people that have charged for a kind of internet session when there's like a million things on YouTube and a million things that just didn't sit overly well with me. I felt the kids if they've got access to the back garden, there's a million things off of a million people that they could easily go and practice. I try and tell my kids and the kids that come to KTA that you're in a perfect situation where you need to find self-motivation. You need to find motivation to go out and practice yourself. You need to find motivation to come up with different ideas, be creative. I get at times you can put the unfortunate thing for putting some of these videos out is that you don't know what kids are actually watching it and what kids are capable of doing the stuff that you're doing. So I find that quite a difficult thing to do for me. But we did have a crack at it. We did try our best to try and engage as many of the kids as we possibly can. Obviously, for the first 7 weeks of lockdown, I worked at Rangers as well. So I was tasked obviously looking after all the players, one-to-one contact, phone calls, Zoom calls. So I was never off the phone or never off the computer. Plus, I had my KTA challenge going. So my wife and my kids were demented. But actually, in the last kind of 2 or 3 weeks, I've kind of had a backward step and just tried to let other people kind of steal the thunder. And we obviously have constant access with the kids through email, the parents, because they're obviously desperate to start back. But the unfortunate thing is until we get the green light off the government and the kids' safety has to be paramount, that until we get that green light, we obviously can't start. So the one-to-one stuff's fine for us as long as we're in big open spaces. But the kind of group sessions and the kids' classes, i.e. predominantly a lot of our grassroots big classes, 30 kids in a class, it's just unattainable to do. So we just try and keep in contact with them and tell them to stay safe and healthy, really.
And then finally, the proudest moment of your career must have been getting the opportunity to commentate with Tom Miller at Rangers TV. Have you enjoyed your roles in the media at Rangers TV and at BT Sport?
Listen, I've loved it. It's the one. And it's not just because Tom's here. It's the one thing, being involved in a big club and hopefully doing all right for yourself as a player. So it gives you opportunities to do the media. But you'll know what I'm like, obviously, even on this call. I love a chat. I love footy. It's ingrained in me. And people like Tom giving me an opportunity, because even though I get an opportunity to work for the club, and Tom might say it helps him out, but it helps me out massively because it gives me a platform and opportunity for people to listen to me talk about footy. which I love. So I'll always be in debt to the people that give me opportunities. And Tom, to be fair to him, even though he's just because he's here, he'll not realise how much he's actually helped. One, my social media, one giving me a platform to help people. Because listen, I wasn't the best player in the world. I'm not a superstar like the manager or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So the one thing in Scotland is when you do retire, there's another Kevin Thomson way to make a profile for himself. So you need to try and have good people around you to give you opportunities to showcase hopefully my next talent. Speaking about football, hopefully one day I'd be really proud if Tom was commentating on one of the games that I was the manager at Ibrox. That would be pretty special to think that I sat next to him in the box seat and he gave me opportunities to commentate on all different Rangers teams that we have done over the last few seasons. Different managers as well, Tom, obviously, because I've done Mark Warburton, I've done Pedro Cousinho, I've done the manager. I never take it for lightly, for the people that help me, whether it's BT, whether it's Tom. And I genuinely mean that. I'm humble to the people that help me, and I'm always be grateful for people that give me the opportunity.
And I think the good thing, Kevin, is you speak as a fan with great knowledge. Your passion for the game comes over loud and clear. There's no fancy terminology. There's no training ground speak. It is straightforward. You cut to the chase and you get your point across particularly well. I've enjoyed working with you over the years, that's for sure.
A good man, mate. I appreciate that.
And then finally we have the YFS quickfire quiz. You ready to take part, Tom?
I'm ready, mate. I'm ready.
Way it works is there'll be 1 minute on the clock. You'll have 1 minute. I'll keep time for you. You will be asked a series of questions on your career or clubs that you've played with. And there's 15 questions in total. Should you get to the end of the 15, you'll get an extra point. But obviously, you need to answer like every 4 seconds or something for that.
That's rapid fire.
You won't get to 15. But if you manage to get there, you
win a million quid on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire for 15.
Yeah.
I've not got that in my back pocket, unfortunately. You ready to go?
I'm ready, mate.
1 minute starting now. So you grew up playing for Hutchison Vale, and then in your senior career you moved to Rangers. But there is one player still at Rangers who also played for Hutchie Vale. Who is it?
Alan McGregor.
Which year was KTA launched?
2017.
Which manager appointed you as captain of Hibs?
Tony Mowbray.
Who did you make your Rangers debut against?
Kilmarnock.
Who was your Scotland debut against?
Northern Ireland.
Gary O'Connor, Derek Riordan, yourself, Stephen Whittaker and Scott Brown. But who was the last to leave Hibs? Out of those 5?
Stephen Whittaker.
And who was your last professional goal for?
Rangers.
Who's the current Middlesbrough manager?
Jonathan Woodgate.
Which manager made you captain of Dundee?
Paul Hartley.
And that is your minute up.
That was because you were too slow answering them.
That's the minute up. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 correct answers. You got one wrong, which was the Kevin Thomson Academy was actually launched in 2016.
Was it?
But for tax purposes, 2017. That's when you need to lodge the accounts. So I think that's questionable.
Well, you only obviously get the ones that were within the minute, so that is a final score.
Si wouldn't have been able to stop talking for you to let him answer. You could have.
That was the problem. I had Si for on over 2 hours, so my laptop nearly blew up by the time went to his room. And this is your chance to nominate someone else to come on and beat your score of 8. So who are you going to nominate, Tom?
I'm going to nominate the main man, Tom Miller. You'll certainly need to be quicker answering him the questions because he will. That is a fact.
Do my best. Cheers, Kevin. Thank you.
So you up for it, Tom?
Yeah, why not? Absolutely.
Perfect. So that concludes this evening's interview. Thank you very much for coming on, Tom.
Pleasure, mate.
Really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me. Anytime. Tom knows
problem.
anytime he needs a favour, I'll do anything for him. So anytime,
Greatly appreciated.
Success ads. I hope.
Thank you very much.
Any help you need, just give me a shout, okay?
You too.
All the best
Thank
to
you
the
very
family,
much.
Kevin. Great to speak to you. Thanks
All
again.
bad. Stick in it.
Oh, man.
Please after.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Kevin. Take care.
See you, boys.
Outstanding.